Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the next in our ongoing series of Mahler Complete Symphony Cycle boxes reviewed as individual sets. Now, some of you have said to me, are you going to do Gary Bertini? The answer is yes. Here is Gary Bertini. Now, this is a fascinating case history in the wild and crazy world of classical music recordingness, because Bertini was able to do this because it was a co-production with WDR, which is, German radio, and in this case, Cologne radio, and it is the best Mahler cycle available. How's that for a simple statement? By best, what do I mean? What I mean, the most consistent. It has no weak points. There are no bad performances in it. And that is an extraordinary accomplishment. It may not be my favorite in any of the individual works, but they're all really, really good. And as an achievement in the history of Mahler conducting, it really sort of stands alone in that respect. It's an amazing, amazing set of Mahler symphonies. And I really wish that it would never go out of print. I don't know if Warner still has a license for it. It is this co-production. Possibly they could redo it. It says made by WDR. Here's these little things. See that little thing there? There you go. And it was on EMI. So God knows what's going on. I've looked on Amazon and I see individual releases in this cycle available at like stupid prices, and this is available at a ridiculous price. I can't recommend that anybody buy it for that reason. Perhaps it's available as a digital download. But the point of the matter is that Bertini was never a big name. He's an Israeli conductor. The name is Italian. He changed it. It was real. Never mind what his real name was. But he was an Israeli conductor. He was active in the German radio world. And I saw him. He was also a very fine Berlioz conductor. There's a 5 CD box set that we'll talk about at some point on Capriccio of stuff that he did. He was really a good, solid conductor. I saw him in Jerusalem do a remarkably fine Berlioz Requiem with the Jerusalem Symphony at one point, with lots of extra brass from the Israeli military, and all their friends were there in uniform, with their scores. It was really kind of cool. And it was a very, very fine performance. And so I've enjoyed some of his work. I've enjoyed the one time I saw him live very, very much. But this was a shocker because it was just so good. But it was never competitive because, Cologne Radio Symphony was not an orchestra anybody particularly cared about, even though they were fabulous here. And don't forget Gunter Vaughn doing his Bruckner cycle and whatnot in Cologne as well. They're really, really good. And they're really well recorded, really beautifully recorded. So the sonics are fantastic. And Bertini has some real ideas about how the music can go. Let's just talk about them one at a time, and you'll see what I mean. Symphony number 1. Now, Symphony number one is a fresh, lively, effortless performance. It's what it needs to be. This is the Wunderhorn Symphony, right? And you don't want to make a meal of it. It should wake up at dawn and then play itself flowingly and beautifully as if there's no conductor there at all. It should just do its thing, and it just does its thing, and they play it really well. Now, let's look at these. Sometimes the timings are useful, and there's a booklet here with notes, so we can make some points regarding them, however. It's a perfectly beautiful performance. Symphony number 2. Okay, now number 2 is not, again, as much of an event as the piece can be. I'm an event guy when it comes to the Resurrection. I think it should be a big deal. The way Bernstein did it, the way Klaus Tenstedt did it, you realize that something momentous is happening. I don't get that momentous feeling in this performance, but the playing as such is top-notch, and Bertini makes all the right sounds. He catches all the big moments. None of the climaxes misfire. The singing is really good. The balances are really good. It's a very satisfying performance, but not the most, thrilling transcendental performance. Number 3, on the other hand, is extraordinarily fine. First of all, you begin to hear just how marvelously recorded it is. And the orchestra, it seems, really relishes the solo opportunities in the symphony. It has one of the all-time greatest trombone solos in the first movement. I mean, the only one who really compares probably is Joe Alessi, in Bernstein's second Deutsche Grammophon recording, which is unbelievable. But the trombone makes that first movement for the most part. So all the marches really come off really well. The finale is very slow, 26-minute Adagio, showing us that Bertini isn't afraid to really, take his time and milk the music and let its sort of spiritual qualities emerge. Oh, it's just lovely. And all the stuff in the middle is very nicely done. So it's a very, very good third. The fourth is like the first. It's a Wunderhorn type symphony. It should be effortless. It should flow and sound bucolic and pastoral and just lovely. And it does. Again, you're not conscious of somebody manipulating things behind the scenes, which I think really a very, very fine thing. And the soloist is Lucia Popp, who's, Lucia Popp. She's fabulous. She's Lucia Popp. She knows what she's doing. So that's a very, very welcome account of the fourth. The only thing is it's broken up over 2 discs with the finale all alone on the next disc, coupled with the Fifth Symphony. Yeah, Fifth is great. It's one of the great fifths. I mean, when a conductor doesn't blow the fifth, you're in good shape, because everybody messes up the fifth, but Bertini does not. It's an extremely beautifully refined, well-played performance that's fast and hard-hitting where it needs to be. The climax is the second movement. The finale, the rondo, it's really buoyant. It's just delightful. A wonderful, wonderful account of the fifth. The sixth has some amazing moments. The sixth, I think this is one of the great sixths. I really do. It's a performance of rather deliberate tempi. But the cool thing about this sixth is that, it doesn't have like the biggest hammer blows. It doesn't have the most volcanic climaxes, but it has the most atmospheric quiet bits. You realize just how much of the sixth is a symphony of mystery, of half tints. I mean, the scenes with the cowbells and the quiet moments with the celesta in the background and the low harps. And you've never heard a more spooky or atmospheric account of those passages. And there are a lot of them. Usually we sort of get through them on the way to like the big loud things, right? But this is a sixth that has, it's a very complete feeling sixth because it has top to bottom atmosphere and color. Really an exceptional performance. For the seventh, it's very funny. Listening to these symphonies, you could almost sort of categorize them as Wunderhorn symphonies and not. And in the knots, the third is a Wunderhorn symphony, but it sort of goes to me as a not because of the finale. There are performances in which Bertini is willing to be very expansive and far more sort of interventionist or personal in his approach to the music. And then there are those where he's a bit cooler and much more of a sit back and let the music make its own points type conductor. And both approaches work. The only iffy one, I think, is the second. But the first is one of those. The fourth is one of those, sort of hands-off things. And so is the seventh. And the seventh is definitely one of those symphonies where the less you do, the better it sounds, because the music itself is so quirky and so weird that if you just really dig in and let the orchestra speak in the way Mahler intended. See, we're not talking about non-interpretation or underplaying. We're talking about the way that you realize the music. And in this particular case with the seventh, he lets the music speak pretty much the way Mahler, I think, intended it to speak. And in the sixth, I'm making nonsense, aren't I? I mean, in saying these things, this is hands off, hands on, this and that. It's a difference not in idiomatic approach, simply in the willingness of the conductor to impose his own concept on the work. It's a concept that's entirely congruent with what Mahler wants to do in all of these performances. But in some of them, he's more evident, and in others, he's less evident. Let's just put it that way. And he knows when to be which. He's made up his mind for each symphony, sort of when to do, what to do, and it's all working. I mean, that's the point. It just works. And I know my explanation sounds kind of garbled, but, these are fine details of interpretation. And, I'm trying to characterize in words, which is what would be very, very evident when you listen. So let's just leave it at that. The eighth is great. The eighth is one of the great eighths, one of the top two, the other being the Witt performance on Naxos. It's amazing. It's swift. It's thrilling. It's live. It's exciting. And he has such a great idea for the eighth, which is play the whole movement as quickly as possible until you get to the end and then slam on the brakes and just let the heavens open. I wish he'd done that in the second symphony. That would have been absolutely the bee's knees. But he does it in the eighth, and that makes this one of the most thrilling eighths you've ever heard, because it's exciting as hell until you get to the end of each movement, when all of a sudden it slows down for just unbelievable grandeur and majesty. It's phenomenal, and it's really well sung. It's live. It's really well recorded. I think it was recorded live in Japan or something like that. Does it say here? Wait a minute. Let's see. Scooby-Doo. Here we go. November. Yes, Suntory Hall in Tokyo. And wow, it's wonderful. It's got great soloists. Julia Varady, Marianne Hagender, Florence Quivar, Maria Venuti, Anne Howells, Paul Frey, Alan Titus, and Siegfried Fogel. Really, really a marvelous, marvelous eighth. One of the smartest realizations of it I have ever heard. The ninth. Well, the ninth is one of the great ones. It's terrific. It has a very, very slow concluding Adagio. What is it, like 28 minutes and 34 seconds. It's another live Suntory Hall Tokyo performance. And it's one of those live events with a deathly quiet audience because, Japanese audience would rather commit suicide than, make a sound. And wow, it's a wonderfully intense, emotionally powerful performance of the ninth, and fabulously played, wonderfully recorded. It's just, it's the whole package. He does give us the Adagio of the 10th, another beautiful performance, and you get Das Lied von der Erde with Mariana Lipovchik, who's a terrific soloist. I love Lipovchik ever since she did the Sphinx in Ionescu's Oedipe and Frank Martin's Der Coronet. Unbelievably wonderful, wonderful contralto. She didn't always record well. The voice wasn't always well caught, but she's a terrific singer. And Ben Heppner is the tenor. And the only issue I have with this Das Lied von der Erde, which is also superbly conducted and paced, is that the voices are in a slightly different acoustic from the rest of the orchestra. That's a function of the way they were mic'd. I mean, that's just the way it was. This was also a Tokyo recording. And that you have to get used to a little bit. But as far as the performance goes, it's marvelous. And so that is my own, I apologize, unfortunately garbled attempt to explain why this is such a great Mahler cycle and how smart and intelligent it is, and how well Bertini has conceptualized his approach to each work, to differentiate them and to kind of put the Mahler symphonies into two general categories. And I don't know if any of that made any sense to you. What I hope will make sense is the fact that this is a great box, a great set, and it could have been one of my ripe for reissue raves or rants, because this should never be out of print. Someone should sit there and say, we have one of the great Mahler cycles. Let's make sure it stays available. Because it really is that good. And no, he isn't the biggest name. The orchestra wasn't the biggest name. Thank God he had the chance to do this at all. Because everyone is going to be flogging the other people. And flog away. Some of them are marvelous. I'm not saying they shouldn't, but we must always acknowledge greatness wherever we hear it. And this, my friends, is greatness. So keep on listening, and thank you so much for joining me. Take care.